The South African Council of Churches says it's ready to support an inquiry by the Human Rights Commission into the violence and looting that swept through Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal last month. More than 300 people were killed during that violence that initially began as part of protest against the jailing of former President Jacob Zuma. 36 people were killed in Phoenix near Durban, allegedly by vigilante groups that claimed they were protecting their neighbourhoods from looters. Police say most of those killed were black, and locals say they were racially profiled and murdered by members of the predominantly Indian community in Phoenix. Let's speak with the South African Council of Churches General Secretary Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana. Bishop, it's been a while. Good to connect with you again. It's what now, a month since we saw those chaotic scenes and that shocking death toll, more than 300 people killed in July. How are you digesting what happened?
It's absolutely tragic, but it also is a commentary on the failure of our society to actually develop into a common one South African nation. You know, we still recall recently, of course, with the death of President Kaunda, his rallying call, "One Zambia, one nation, one Zambia, one nation." We haven't come to that in South Africa. We're not one nation. That's work that has to be done. The deep-seated suspicions, mutual mistrust that are there. We can talk about the instigators of the unrest. We can talk about all the orchestration and the choreography that went into the development. That's police work. They can deal with that. But what I think is necessary, and I think this is what the Human Rights Commission will help us with, is to actually deal with the kind of the core, the internal issues that make it difficult for us to have what we call social cohesion. Now, in a place like Phoenix, it's just one example. It's all over the country, but it's just one example. It's an example of a community and a society that has retained the largely, apartheid spatial identity. And even though it is no longer just a wholly Indian society, it still is largely so, as are many suburbs largely white, as are many townships, in fact, almost completely African. Not only that, almost completely one ethnic group. So we haven't dealt with these things in the past. Yeah. I want to say a little bit about Phoenix, though. That's actually makes it a unique and uniquely helpful place for the Human Rights Commission to do what they are doing. Is that it is a place that, like many other places, has been really controlled a lot by gangsters. They are very strong, we understand, because that's what I learned when I went to Phoenix. They are strong gangsters, they're powerful gangs. That these are the guys that have been carrying the AK-47s. Now, these guys there's a culture of what is called protection fees for businesses, and which is an old Durban phenomenon, where the gangs that say, "We'll come to your shop at Tembekile and we'll protect you, pay us a fee." And Tembekile refuses to pay the fee, then of course Tembekile is going to be in trouble. So Tembekile doesn't feel he has a choice. So there's a lot of that as well that is at play that I think that we will be able to get to the bottom of. But we also know that when that kind of phenomenon obtains, a lot of the population feel powerless. And that's what some of the people told me at Phoenix, that look, we saw what was happening, we're ashamed of it, we're embarrassed by it, but we had no power to deal with it. And that we now need to get to the bottom of it and deal with it in the same way in every other community that's controlled by gangs. Then the racial tag then gets used in this environment because we have not dealt with our racial divisions of the past. And I think that's what Pastor Dubu was talking about in his piece recently.
And given that, Bishop, and the feeling by some people who said, well, even if we do participate in the Human Rights Commission inquiries, nothing is going to change because this is an issue that's been a reality in areas such as Phoenix and broader KwaZulu-Natal for decades. How do you then resolve it? It's going to take more than the hearings, isn't it?
There has been a Chapter 9 institution attending to it, and this is what, because the Chapter 9 institution, that's why I'm saying that it is helpful that the Human Rights Commission is actually coming to it, because to surface this, but we're saying it should not only be, whatever they surface, we must know that it does not only apply to Phoenix, it applies across the province and it applies in other communities as well. I want to say one more thing about this, that there is something also unique about Durban in particular. That and this is one of the things that I'm told by the people at Phoenix, that we're trumpeted a lot by the gangsters that were promoting these criminal killings of Africans. I mean, it's horrible. I mean, hunting them like animals, chasing them into the bush, shooting them and clubbing them to death. That's something it's almost like I don't know what kind of human being would do that kind of thing. But they were saying to the residents, if we don't do this for you, we'll get back to January 1949. Of course, that history, the fact that even that history can be used today to cow down a population, tells us that there is work to be done. Now, we at the Council of Churches have been working with the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation, and we believe together with them that the work that has to be done, they actually have given us a model of a tree where you've got these fruits, every tree has got fruits, but the fruits that we see are all these terrible things that we're experiencing. But where do they come from? They come from the roots.
Okay. And I want to ask you something else, Bishop. I think we may have
the tree is nurtured from the roots.
All right, Bishop, your picture froze there,
Hello?
so we lost the last bit of what you're saying. But let me use this time that we have, the last few moments, in case we lose you again, and ask you about the country's response to what happened in July in the broader context. Over 300 people were killed. We've seen thousands of arrests, yes. The police minister was saying yesterday more arrests are on the way. But do you think that the response by government was adequate?
Not at all, not at all. Look, the church leaders have actually reflected on this, and we believe that at the core of it is the fact that, and this is a serious problem, at the core of it is the fact that this whole thing is an internal problem in the African National Congress that spills over into society, and that we as a country are almost held to ransom by the divisions of the ANC, because that's really what this is about. It is about the way they look at the problem, and therefore the responses themselves are then get encumbered because the institutions that are supposed to respond also are politicized. And so we feel as a country that we have to address this very seriously. And that's again the same reason that we believe that the Human Rights Commission, as a Chapter 9 institution that is not political, is able or better able to get to the bottom of these things. I think that right now we have to say that let's take the responsibility to the constitutional level, and all of us have a role to play in this regard.